I love being right. And I love being right about a juicy story. And I love even more being right about a juicy story about DOC. And I love even more about being right about a juicy story about DOC, that's Rikers Island for those who aren't in New York City, and being in a position to say, if Mayor Adams and former Commissioner Louis Molina hadn't fired me, none of this would have happened. But here we are. So gather around, kids. This is for you, my DOC people. I know I've been doing a lot of Diddy and Luigi talk, but I've been keeping up, and this is one for the ages. 3 weeks ago, a Queens public defender, a lawyer defending people who are accused of a crime, named Bernardo Caceres, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his last name, was arrested. Okay? He was arrested by the New York City Department of Correction, and they claimed that he was bringing in THC soaked papers to his client who is on Rikers Island. Now, this is a favorite topic of COBA's president, Benny Basio, who loves to say all sorts of things about why people should be searched and their mail should be searched and how everybody is bringing in contraband and is always wrong. Let's rewind back for a second and I'll give you some history. Mayor Adams, when he came into office, put Louis Molina in as Department of Correction Commissioner January 1st, 2022. January 3rd, 2022, that was the first Monday. That was his first day on the job. He fires me. I was in charge of the investigation division, the trials division, and the Correction Intelligence Bureau at the time. The investigation division investigates staff misconduct, the trials division punishes staff misconduct, and CIB, the Correction Intelligence Bureau, is the bureau that we're going to talk about today. They're the ones who love to say they're the police officers of Rikers Island, that they patrol the most dangerous precinct in the city, Rikers Island. They're the ones who are in charge of rearresting detainees who commit crimes on Rikers Island and for arresting people who commit crimes on Rikers Island who aren't detainees, such as visitors, and in this case, a lawyer. Now, I took over CIB just a few months before I was fired, so I hadn't been able to really fix anything, but it needed a lot of fixing. And one of the things that was a problem with CIB for a very long time is that they relied on what's called a field test in order to make determinations about contraband. And think of it as any other field test that a police officer might use on the street rather than an actual lab. It's a type of test that doesn't really have much oversight. It's easily fallible. They come back with false positives all of the time. There's issues with chain of custody. There's issues with testing. There's all sorts of issues with these tests. And I didn't think that we should be relying on the results of those tests to make arrests because I didn't think it even gave us probable cause. DOI, the New York City Department of Investigation, is the entity that also helps with crime on Rikers Island. They're the ones who are supposed to conduct an independent investigation and make judgment calls on whether somebody should be arrested and prosecuted. Now, they have had a lot of problems with CIB's field tests, and they've put that pen to paper and written reports about it and written guidance to DOC saying, literally, do not rely on field tests to make arrests anymore. They are unreliable. And what does DOC do? They continue to use those tests. So here we are, 3 weeks ago, Mr. Caceres gets arrested for bringing in contraband, bringing in pieces of paper to his client, who, by the way, is on trial. He's literally on trial, in the middle of trial. And Mr. Caceres was trying to, go and prep him for his potential testimony at trial. And instead, these CIB people come in and arrest him, claiming that those papers that he was bringing in was soaked with THC. By the way, another rogue unit that was created by Louis Molina, SIU, the Special Investigations Unit, which Molina split off from the investigation division that I used to run in order to help continue to, shield what was happening on Rikers Island. He let ID, the investigation division, continue to just investigate uses of force, and everything else was investigated by SIU. All the stuff that Molina wanted buried and covered up, such as deaths in custody, escapes, contraband, all of that stuff, so that he could control the narrative. So I don't know if SIU was involved in this particular arrest, but they should have probably been involved in some of that investigation, and it wouldn't surprise me if they were and messed that whole thing up too. Now, the second I heard about this arrest, I took to Twitter and I wrote, "Mark my words, there's no way this thing gets prosecuted and convicted." I don't know exactly my words. I'm going to put it up, but I was basically like, "There's no way this stuff is going to come back as actual drugs, and this case is going to get dismissed. No doubt in my mind." Meanwhile, you have Benny Basio and all these people talking about how they made this great drug bust and ooh, it was a lawyer. They're so happy when they get to bust a lawyer, and they've never been successful at busting a lawyer because guess what? Those of us who put our hard work in to do 3 years of law school and get our license and practice, we're not going to put all of that on the line to smuggle drugs onto Rikers Island. And lo and behold, 3 weeks later, here we are today. Graham Raymond writing for the New York Daily News. Way to go, Graham, for the follow-up. Writing that, guess what? They sent those papers to the NYPD lab, which is a legitimate testing lab, and it wasn't drugs. There were no drugs on the papers. Could you believe it? I can. And they dismissed the case, as they should. They, meaning the Bronx District Attorney's Office, who is the prosecuting office for these kinds of things. They dismissed his case. But only after he was detained, he was arrested, he was made to wait in cuffs for 6 hours. His name was tarnished and blasted all over the papers, being a drug smuggling attorney. And his client, who was literally in the middle of trial, was totally screwed because they had to stop the trial to get him a new lawyer. Like the entire trial, all that work was thrown out. He was in the middle of trial. You don't know how long that takes to get a case ready for trial, to get up to speed as a new lawyer who's, given that case. They had to redo the whole thing because they falsely arrested this guy's lawyer and bragged about it on social media. Now, another reason I knew that this was going to be total BS, not only because I worked there and I saw, but I represent a correction officer who the exact same thing happened to. CIB and SIU came flooding in because they claimed that he was trying to smuggle drugs onto Rikers Island. There was no reason to believe that he was. They took this little boy's blue balloon from the backseat of his car and claimed that there was like liquid cocaine inside of it. And the field test said, yup, liquid cocaine. And guess what? NYPD lab, no drugs. That case was dismissed, and we're in the middle of a lawsuit right now, which we're gonna win. And guess who made the genius idea to publicize this case before really knowing that there was an actual crime committed? A woman named Inez Morales. She's a deputy commissioner at DCPI at DOC. Yes, if you recognize that name, she's been in the news recently. Why? Because she ended up being in a scuffle with another person when she was attending an event for Mayor Adams, and she got into a fight with another person at this event and took their phone from them and threw it. You understand that these are the people that we're relying on to run Rikers Island? Like, do you understand that? CIB is in charge of all of the rearrests on Rikers Island. That is, any rearrest of a detainee who commits a crime where they claim is committing a crime on Rikers Island. Any arrest of a visitor, if a visitor shows up and they claim that that visitor did something wrong, that visitor was trying to smuggle drugs, whatever, it's them. They're the ones who we rely on to make these arrests. Do we really think that they're doing the right thing? Shouldn't we be auditing all of their cases if this is the level of judgment and rationale that they have in their brains? And this is a case they publicized. What about all the other regular cases of regular people who aren't a lawyer and don't have representation and the ability to plead their case publicly? What about them? If I were still there today, every single person who was involved in this debacle would be fired. This is why a receiver is so necessary, and thank God Judge Swain is vetting people right now for receivership to take over Rikers Island and fix these insane issues. Not just insane issues, mind you, constitutional violations.